Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of my favorite series. This time I'm tackling 10 films that I believe that Criterion should actually put in their collection. This actually is in line with Criterion mission, along with my personal take on a lot of these films. I really enjoy each one of these movies, and I believe they actually belong in the collection, and I think that each of them have their own merits and to why they should belong here. So before I talk about that, I also want to update you on the house. I have recently bought a house, if anyone hasn't seen any of those videos where I've recently bought a house. I will be doing a video of a tour, kind of like a mini tour of everything very shortly, but I am still unpacking things and trying to make everything look nice, and I got a lot of things to do and I got a lot of things to pay, so I haven't really been buying movies, but I've been really busy doing other things. So with that being said, let's get into the mission of Criterion. I want to read to you the mission from Criterion on their own homepage from Criterion. Since 1984, the Criterion Collection has been dedicated to publishing important classic and contemporary films from around the world in editions that offer the highest technical quality and award-winning original supplements. No matter the medium, from Laserdisc to DVD to Blu-ray to streaming, Criterion has maintained its pioneering commitment to presenting each film as its maker would want it seen, in state-of-the-art restorations with special features designed to encourage repeated watching and deepen the viewer's appreciation of the art of film. So with that in mind, I have decided to craft 10 films that I believe Criterion could add to their collection. Obviously there's a whole process that we as viewers don't really understand. There's a rights process. The Criterion Collection and Janus Films have to get the rights to these films to obviously put them in their collection. Some of these movies I'm going to be showing you, they'll never ever get the rights to. I just know they won't. Some of them might actually end up in the collection someday, and that's really, really cool, and hopefully that means my predictions come true. However, I want to go in chronological order from the year that it was released all the way to the current year. There's actually a thing that came out last year that I believe belongs in the collection. So let's go through each one of them and explore why I believe each of these should be in the Criterion Collection. Alright, so the first film we're going to be talking about is the classic from 1920, the German silent film from the German expressionist W.F. Murnau, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. This film is just phenomenal. Now this is a Kino Classic edition. Now so they've actually restored this to 4K, and they actually made a lot of really great adaptations to this. So honestly, Criterion doesn't really have to have this because there's already a really, really great edition of this film. But this movie is just really culturally important and significant to a lot of the things going on during the time period. This came out in 1920. It's a really fantastic theatrical film. When I say that, I mean like they have theater and film combined. This is just one of those where the set designs really bleed in with the actors and just what's going on in the overall story. And it honestly just feels like I'm watching a really insane play, and I love it. And so I just think that this is one of those films that I believe Criterion could definitely someday in the future maybe get the rights to this film. Obviously, like I said, there's already a really great edition out right now, but I would really like to see this in the collection. I'd really like to see a lot more German silent films in the collection, and I'm actually going to allude to that in a second after my second pick. So my first pick is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and I believe this movie belongs in the collection absolutely 100%. It's just incredibly important to horror films, it's incredibly important to silent films, and just film in general, and set design, and just a lot of the things that are just insane in this movie. And it's really, really cool just to see all these things unfold, and also a lot of these ideas just happen in such an early time period. And I'm sure people echo the fact that they're kind of blown away by the time periods, and I want to try to stay away from that, but it's really interesting, how we always forget how the time periods before us, even if it's all the way back in 1920, nearly 100 years ago, literally, until next year, that things like this exist, and humans were just doing incredibly significant things in the realm of film, and we just kind of take a lot of these things for granted. So I believe Criterion should put this in their collection. Let's go on to my second pick, another German film. This time, getting out of the horror element into more of the sci-fi element, we have Fritz Lang's 1927 Metropolis. Now this is another edition of Kino Lorber, the Kino Classic edition, the International edition right here. Now this is also another fantastic edition with a really great restoration, and honestly Kino has done a really great job of putting this thing together, but I would really like to see this on the Criterion just selection of films, because once again these German silent films, these German expressionist films, really are political and social at the same time with the things going on in the history of Germany, especially during these periods. This movie is just, it's got one of the best set productions I've ever seen in my life. I'm sure it cost a fortune to make, and it's just visually stunning, and it really set the blueprint for a lot of the science fiction of the future. And we see something like Blade Runner in the 80s, all the way to something like Blade Runner 2049 or Annihilation now. A lot of these things get their ideas from this film, and that's what it's just culturally significant and really, really important to the time period, and also just in general to a lot of us. And so I really love this movie. It's an epic film. It's a huge film. It's got some social class commentary. I believe it just naturally fits in the collection. I just feel like possibly Criterion could put this out someday, and it would just be fantastic if they did. Alright, moving along to a film that I believe Criterion will never get their hands on, which is unfortunate because this company is morally bankrupt a little bit. That's Disney's Fantasia. This came out in 1940, and good God, I love this film. This film is just so damn important to animation and music and just my own upbringing as a kid. And obviously that's where the personal comes in with what I think Criterion should put it in. It's a contemporary classic. It's a film that really combines all the classical elements of Stravinsky to Bach to Beethoven, and they add it with animation, and they have a different artist interpretation of what these scores, these sounds, these symphonies really sound like with animation, and how they kind of craft that together to make some really beautiful images, some really frightening images, and just all sorts of just things in between. And I just absolutely love this film. It's one of those movies that I know has been on Laserdisc before. I don't remember if it was on Criterion's Laserdisc collection, but I believe this film definitely belongs a spot in the collection. And also Criterion needs more animated films. This is one contender that I believe that Criterion can definitely look into, because this is one that is absolutely phenomenal, and it's just a cultural milestone. It came out a couple years later after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is one of the first animated films of all time. And so with the success of that and the success of Fantasia and Fantasia 2000 later on, I don't know, I feel like this is one of those films that it lightens my mood every single time I see it, and I just feel like it is something that Criterion definitely should consider if they ever get their hands on it, which is definitely not the highest possibility because Disney is Disney, so that's probably not going to happen. So this is my third pick from 1940, Fantasia. Alright, we're jumping all the way from 1940 to 1988. I know I skipped a lot, but this is just some films I really wanted to talk about in the kind of modern era. The first one being Cinema Paradiso. Now this is an Italian film. Arrow Video has also, Arrow Academy has put out a really fantastic edition of this film. This is just a film for movie lovers. This absolutely 100% fits in with the definition of what it means to be in the Criterion collection. This is a film about the love of cinema, that actual just childlike nature and wonder. A lot of us grew up with these films, and a lot of us grew up with Fantasia, all the way up to Andrei Rublev. We have a journey. We have a journey to explore. Cinema Paradiso explores this in a really, really amazing film about just this kid growing up and going through his local cinema and his small little town. And there's a lot of implications in this film too. And there's just a lot of things that I believe really just fit the definition of what it means to be in the Criterion collection. So I believe Cinema Paradiso obviously is, once again, Arrow has put out a fantastic edition of this. In fact, this is a newly restored edition with 174-minute director's cut. The audio is 2.0 and 5.1 surround sounds, and there's just a lot of just extra footage and extra special edition stuff that Criterion normally would put out with their editions as well. So honestly, I probably would not see this ever really being putting in the collection, but it's definitely a natural fit in the collection. I believe Cinema Paradiso would be fantastic to be in this film. So that's I think it would be fantastic to be in the collection. So that's my number 4 pick from 1988. Now it's time to talk about another film from 1988 that I also think belongs in this collection. Also, I forgot to mention this movie's Italian, and they deal with foreign films quite a bit, and we haven't really talked much about that with the German silent films, but a lot of these films that Criterion puts out are foreign, and that means it's less accessible to many audiences, and that's something I really wanted to point out with Cinema Paradiso as well. This is an Italian film, and a lot of people aren't really accustomed to subtitles if you're not, looking at Criterion and their collection and what they have to offer, and this is just a natural fit. So moving on from there, we're actually still staying in 1988. We're actually talking about another animated film, but this is another one that I think that Disney has the rights to this now, which is unfortunate, so it's probably never going to see the light of day, but this is Studio Ghibli's Grave of the Fireflies. This came out in 1988. This is Hayao Miyazaki. He is a phenomenal and really important auteur from Japan, who is just amazing animator, who has just put together amazing Japanese folklore with Japanese animation, and it's just, this is one of the films that is highly political, as well as just a film that is just contemporary classic in my opinion, and it's just one of those films that is along the lines of, why we have Watership Down in the collection. It's not a film for kids per se. It's definitely it's definitely a film for somebody who is kind of going between that between stage, their childlike wonder of things, to an adult, to a teenager or whatever. This movie really shows the horrors of war from a child's perspective, and I think this is just a phenomenal work of art that belongs in the collection. This is just one of those films that definitely speaks volumes for the importance of what it means to cinema, and just to Miyazaki in general. And honestly, a Miyazaki film belongs in this collection. I don't really know why there's not. It's probably rights. That's probably the reason why. But I believe Grave of the Fireflies deserves to be in the collection, absolutely 100%. And this movie is just a Japanese classic. Watch the English version, watch the Japanese version. They're both fantastic. I really love this film, and I would love to see it in the collection. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that one. Alright, we're moving from 1988 to 2002. Actually, we're jumping up a little bit again to a Brazilian film, City of God. This is a really phenomenal, epic film from Brazil in 2002, like I said. City of God represents just a whole array of emotion, from the political, the social, the personal, to just the cinematic, and that's something that Criterion lists in their requirements to be in the collection, and so that's something that I believe definitely belongs in this collection. It's definitely one of the more popular movies from Brazil. It's one of the more famous ones. This is an insane story, and if you have not watched this film, I'm not really going to talk much about it, but I really want to just explain how amazing this movie is, just to a lot of people. This movie just really just cracks at what it means to be good or bad, and just a lot of the things in between, and I just really absolutely 100% think that this film belongs in the collection for the foreign aspect of it. The contemporary classic element of it as well is just something that just speaks, just naturally speaks the language of Criterion, and I believe that this edition right here could be a little upped, and I think it belongs in the collection, even if it is a little bit more mainstream. There's some mainstream films in the collection, we all know this. Some of us love it, some of us hate it. I absolutely enjoy everything that Criterion's ever put out. That's just me, and so City of God is a welcome addition. I think that belongs in this as well. So we're actually going to move on to another film in 2002 that also just absolutely speaks volumes of why it belongs in the collection. Alright, next we're going to move on to another foreign film, at least from America's perspective, from China, Hero. This is a Jet Li Miramax production with Quentin Tarantino, who actually presented this because he really loved this movie, and I 100% agree with him. This is directed by Zhang Yimou, who directed Great Wall more recently, and that's not such a great film. However, something that this director has always done, and always something that I believe is just super important, is his choreography and his color palette, and just how he sets up scenes and storytelling is just really interesting and really unique to just contemporary auteurs and just filmmakers in general. And I believe this film alone is one of the best films that I've ever seen, especially foreign foreign-wise, from an American's perspective, this movie is just phenomenal. A lot of the fight scenes are highly stylized. It's martial art. It's a martial arts film, so you're going to see a lot of over-the-top kind of crazy choreography. But at the same time, you're also seeing a story unfold with each and every movement that exists, and each with every color that exists too. The set designs are just insane, and just a really colorful and array, and they all have themes and tones to it that I think are just honestly, it's like mouth-watering, but for the eyes, you know. So this movie absolutely, I think, speaks for itself, and I don't really have to explain too much of why this film belongs in the Criterion Collection. This movie is just phenomenal. It's also just, there needs to be more Chinese films in the collection. I obviously know that the political aspect of China has allowed, there's not terribly too many films that can come out of China, but I know they exist, and I know that they deserve their support, and I know they deserve support worldwide, and I know they deserve support in China as well. So I believe that a Criterion Collection can help with that a little bit and put something like this out in the collection, and I think that would just speak wonders for Zhang Yimou. And I probably mispronounced that. I have no idea. If anyone who is Chinese or anyone who knows the name, how to pronounce it, just definitely tell me how I'm wrong down below. Alright, we're moving on from 2002 to 2007 with a film that's probably the biggest one on this entire list, There Will Be Blood. Daniel Day-Lewis plays Daniel Plainview, this oil baron in the middle of, you know, the American West. This is like the early 1900s. This is just a film that Paul Thomas Anderson is just, he's already been in the collection before. He has Punch Drunk Love in the collection. He also probably should have his first debut film, Hard 8, in the collection as well. I'm honestly, out of all the films that probably will be put out eventually in the collection, I think that one is the one that will probably be put out first. There's also been some films that he's had on Laserdisc, like Boogie Nights and Magnolia, that have also existed. But I believe that a lot of the things that Paul Thomas Anderson has been putting out, especially all the way up to Phantom Thread, definitely belong in the collection, because these are films that are just absolutely stunning. He's one of the best film directors that you will ever see in the modern era, and absolutely 100% belongs in the collection. Almost all of his works, in my opinion. But that's just personally what I think. There Will Be Blood is one of the more famous films that he's done, just based on Daniel Day-Lewis's performance alone. His performance is just so insanely phenomenal in this film. Also, John Greenwood's score is just immaculate, and just a lot of the things going on in this film are just, they speak cinema. It's just like such a cinematic experience. A lot of this film is nonverbal, and it's just something that I feel like absolutely 100% belongs in the collection. It definitely fits the description of something that deserves to be preserved, and something that deserves to be praised, and something that I think Criterion could add to it, and Paul Thomas Anderson is still alive, and he can definitely, you know, give the go on it, as long as they get the rights as well. So I think There Will Be Blood is a fantastic and welcome addition to Criterion if they ever, you know, put it out there. Any of the Paul Thomas Anderson films that they put out, that would be great too. But anyway, that's enough about There Will Be Blood. It's an amazing film, and it belongs in the collection. Alright, moving on from 2007's There Will Be Blood, we're moving on to 2008's movie that I've talked about a million times on this channel. I'm going to stand strong for this one because it's In Bruges. This is a movie that I am absolutely 100%, you know this about me, this is my favorite movie. Besides, obviously, Lord of the Rings and the 4 trilogy behind me. I really love this film. I've seen it about 20 or 30 times since I saw it for the first time 3 years ago about. And I fell in love with the characters of Ralph Fiennes, Brendan Gleeson, and of course Colin Farrell. I absolutely love this film from a lot of different aspects. Martin McDonagh directs and crafts one of this is his actually first film. He's done a couple shorts prior to this one. And honestly, he's one of those Irish auteurs that I believe has only gotten a little bit better, at least in the international fame. But I believe that this is his best film he's ever done. Still, I absolutely just enjoy every element about this film. The acting, the score, the cinematography, even like a little bit of the shaky camera work that is done in this film is just... It's just, I don't know, it's the definition of what it means to be a Criterion film, in my opinion, because one, Criterion always likes to put out the first film from a lot of these directors, and also these are like really culturally important films. This film is really a lot about faith, and faith in just humanity and each other, and having a bunch of just black comedy moments about it and as well, but a lot of serious tones with this film as well. I just think this film is something that everyone should watch and kind of see where they land with it. But I think like this is just a perfect film that would be perfect for the collection, and it would just make me very, very happy. I know I've seen some fake images. I'm going to pop up a fake image real quick here of a pretend cover that I think would be really, really great for this film. But anyway, that's enough about In Bruges. I've gushed about this film a million times before, but definitely check this movie out if you haven't seen it. Also, it belongs in the collection. So let's move on to our final film. The last film I want to talk about is actually Luca Guadagnino's Call Me By Your Name. This is based on the novel with the same name. This is a phenomenal, phenomenal film, just for a lot of different reasons. One, for the LGBTQ community. This is a film that I think is just absolutely stunning. There just needs to be more representation in the Criterion collection from these perspectives. And I feel like Armie Hammer and Timothée Chalamet really play fantastic lovers. Friends as well, friends at first. And this is just a film that Luca Guadagnino, with along with these actors, has crafted such a beautiful film that I believe I've watched over and over and over again, and I think is just a really great addition to just what it means to be a human, and the wide array of moments that we have. Moments where we lapse into uncertainty and also lapse into love, and this is something that I just really, really love about this movie. And I just absolutely think this is a film that belongs in the collection. And I honestly 100% guarantee this film probably will be in the collection someday, at least in my book. So, Call Me By Your Name, this is my last film. Oh, wait, there's actually one more. Gotcha. I actually wanted to do exactly what Criterion does to me all the time. When you look at these top 10 lists from Criterion, their collection, they always have actors and authors and directors and producers and all sorts of people making top 10 lists. They always cram in an extra film or two because they're like, this film is tied with this other one. So I decided to add another film as well. And the last film that I want to talk about is actually a film that came out last year from Jim Cummings. That film, of course, is Thunder Road. This movie is just an amazing, amazing piece of work. First of all, this is I think won the John Cassavetes Award at the Independent Spirits Award. I might be wrong on that one. But Thunder Road is just one of those films that it was made with a small budget. It was the first film done by Jim Cummings, who directed, produced, and wrote this, and acted in it. He did everything in this movie. And it's such an emotional roller coaster of a man mourning over his mother and dealing with his job and just all of the aftermath for it. It's just absolutely 100% speaks that this belongs in the Criterion collection. One, I have the fucking DVD cover of this. I have the DVD of this. I don't like having DVDs. I like having Blu-rays. So I'd like to have this in the collection. So Thunder Road is just, it's ripe for the picking, for Criterion to pick it up. I absolutely think that Criterion, this is right up your alley. So if you're watching this video, which I don't know if you are or not, but these are my top 11 films that I believe belong in the Criterion collection. I went from The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari all the way to Thunder Road, so there's a whole array of films in there. Some of them you'll never get probably from Fantasia, maybe even Grave of the Fireflies, but here's for trying. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for checking this video out. I know my schedule's been a little wonky lately, but I want to say thank you for being so patient. I really appreciate it. Check out my latest podcast as well. I really enjoy doing this with my friend Joey. We do a double feature every couple of weeks where we watch something a little bit more high art and the other one is low art, so we kind of contrast the two, and it's really, really fun. So anyway, thank you very much for checking this video out. Like, comment down below. What do you think would be your top 10 films that you think Criterion should put out in their collection? And also, give this video a share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.